Dan Blocker really despised him more than everyone else. Bobby Dan Davis was Dan Blocker's birth name. Blocker on December 10, 1928, Indical, Texas. He grew up in the rough hills of Texas, where hard work, humility, and a strong sense of family became the most important things in his life. From a young age, he had a rare combination of physical power and a kind heart. These attributes would eventually define his most famous cinematic performance. Before he became famous, Dan Blocker lived a life that showed honesty, hard work, and service. He was a gentle giant, even as a young man. He was 6'4" tall and weighed about 300 pounds. He learned the value of hard labor and community while working at his parents' small store in O'Donnell, Texas. Blocker went to Texas Military Institute and then Sul Ross State Teachers College, where he not only did well in school but also became known as a football player. He was respected by his classmates because of his athletic skill and tenacity. He finished with a degree in English and then went on to get a master's degree in dramatic arts. These early events taught him how to be disciplined and passionate, which would affect both his personal and professional life. Blocker was proud to serve his country. Before he became famous, he was enlisted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War and worked as an infantry sergeant. His stint in the military taught him to have a lot of respect for sacrifice, courage, and leadership. He often said that what he saw and did during the war changed how he saw the world and made him more compassionate toward others. People who knew him during this time said he was a guy of great integrity, with a quiet strength and a real kindness that never went away, even amidst the brutal reality of war. Blocker went back to Texas after his time in the military and taught school. He shared his love of history and literature with his students until fate led him to become an actor. It wasn't easy for Dan Blocker to get into Hollywood right away, but he kept trying and eventually made it. He started getting little roles on TV shows like The Rifleman, Gunsmoke, and The Restless Gun in the late 1950s. Casting directors soon noticed his natural charm and big frame. He got the part of Hoss Cartwright in Bonanza in 1959, and that transformed his life forever. The part would not only make his career, but it would also make him one of the most popular TV characters of all time. Dan Blocker was a lot like Hoss, the big-hearted middle son of the Cartwright family. People immediately related with Hoss's warmth and humility because he was kind, funny, and morally honest. Blocker's performance added emotional depth to the show that balanced its action and adventure. Bonanza was one of the most popular TV shows ever. It ran for 14 seasons from 1959 to 1973. Before he died too soon in 1972, Blocker had been in 415 episodes, and during that time, he became a famous face on American TV. People liked him not because he was the fastest shot or the toughest cowboy, but because he was a good person. Blocker was hailed by both critics and fans for bringing honesty to the Western genre. He generally played Hoss as the emotional center of the show. His co-stars, such Lauren Green, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts, really looked up to him and said he was the moral compass of the cast and that he never allowed celebrity affect who he was. Dan Blocker's marriage to Dolphia Parker Blocker is one of the most touching and long-lasting love tales in Hollywood history. A relationship that showed devotion, humility, and profound love in an industry where romances are often short-lived. The couple's relationship started long before Dan became famous. They met while they were both students at S. Ross State University in Alpine, Texas. Dan was studying there, and Dia was also involved in college activities. From the start, they had a strong bond based on common values like respect, kindness, and a real love of simplicity. Dan and Dolphia's love was based on mutual understanding and the comfort of knowing that their hearts were safe in one another's hands. Many couples in show industry were attracted together by glamour or ambition. They got married in 1952, years before Dan Blocker became famous for his portrayal as Eric Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza. The wedding was simple, just like the couple. Two people who love one another very much are starting a life together with little more than hope and determination. Dan was still having a hard time as an actor and teacher at that time. He worked a lot of different jobs to support his young family. Dia stood at his side without wavering, giving him support and stability when the road ahead looked unclear. Dan was able to follow his aspirations because she was strong and patient, even when success appeared far away. It was a partnership based on faith in each other's abilities and the idea that love could help them get through anything. Dolphia was always there for Dan, even as his acting career took off in the late 1950s and then really took off with Bonanza in 1959. She never wanted to be in the spotlight or get attention for herself. She would rather focus on their home and kids. While Dan was on set for long hours filming the renowned Western series, Dia kept their family grounded by making sure their kids grew up in a loving, normal, and morally solid environment. People who knew Dan Blocker well frequently said that even though he was famous, he was still very humble and family-oriented. A lot of that was because of Dia's unobtrusive influence. She was his best friend, the person who kept him grounded, and the one who reminded him of who he was outside of his fame and fortune. Their marriage also gave them 4 kids, twins David and Dirk, and daughters Deborah Lee and Dana Lynn. People knew that the Blocker home was warm and funny, and Dan often said that his wife was the one who kept it that way. He wouldn't allow Hollywood influence how he treated his wife or family, even as his fame grew. He always talked about Dia with great love, calling her his greatest gift and the love of his life. They had a marriage that could handle the ups and downs of fame, long hours at work, and the stress of being in the public eye, but it never changed. People who knew Dan well knew how much he loved Dolphia. He would often rush home after shooting instead of going to industry parties since he liked spending quiet evenings with his wife and kids. Bonanza was one of the most popular TV westerns of all time. It won the hearts of Americans for more than 10 years with stories about the Cartwright family, which included patriarch Ben and his 3 kids, Adam, Hoss, and Little Joe. But things weren't always as peaceful behind the scenes as they were on TV. Bonanza made it look like the cast members were all part of a close-knit frontier family, but in actual life, their relationships were sometimes much more convoluted. One of the most stressful and emotionally charged relationships was between Dan Blocker, who played the kind-hearted Big Eric Hoss Cartwright, and Pernell Roberts, who played Adam Cartwright and was very intense and smart. Dan Blocker was known for being friendly and devoted to his co-workers, and he rarely held a grudge against anyone. Blocker was a guy of principle who valued teamwork and respect. He was born in Texas and was a teacher and soldier, but even he had trouble getting along with Pernell Roberts. There was no vanity or competitiveness for screen time in their tension. It was about people with different values and personalities. Roberts was known for being very honest and constantly criticized the scripts and direction of Bonanza, which he thought were superficial and formulaic. He sought stories that went deeper and broke social standards, and he wasn't hesitant to speak up about how upset he was on set. Blocker, who believed in being professional and dedicated to the show that made them famous, took Roberts's relentless criticism to heart. Blocker once said in an interview, "Pernell thought he was smarter than the rest of us, and maybe he was, but it didn't mean he could treat others like idiots." He also said that working with Roberts might be like walking on eggshells because Roberts often wouldn't practice lines that he thought were badly written or below him. Blocker, who was proud of being easygoing and helpful, thought that kind of behavior was rude to the cast and crew. He would often comment, "We're a family on this set, and a family doesn't tear each other down in front of outsiders." As the seasons went on, the 2 men's philosophical differences grew even more. Roberts wanted to leave the series because he felt creatively stuck. Blocker, on the other hand, liked Bonanza and saw it as a rare chance to bring good, clean fun into American homes. Roberts didn't like how well the show did in the ratings, but Blocker was grateful for it. Blocker once said that Pernell thought Bonanza was too straightforward, too moral, and too good-natured. But that's what people needed, a little bit of good in their life. He couldn't see that. Even though they were different, both actors were very committed to being real in their performances. Roberts was a trained actress who took each part very seriously. Blocker, on the other hand, relied on his gut and honesty. The fight between their brains and their hearts was a big part of their relationship and the creative friction that made Bonanza work. Their fights were sometimes intense, but they never got violent. But everyone on the set knew that Blocker didn't like Roberts. Michael Landon, who played Little Joe, once said that Dan tried to be patient, but Pernell had a way of pushing people too far. Blocker was said to have felt both happy and heartbroken when Roberts finally left Bonanza in 1965. He claimed in an interview years later, "I never wanted him to be bad, but I was happy to stop fighting." The departure brought tranquility back to the set, and Blocker was in a good mood again. He still couldn't totally get over his anger. Blocker agreed that he was a clever man, but he made everyone around him unhappy. You can't make anything nice out of anger. Time, on the other hand, made Blocker's fury less sharp. Roberts went on to work in theater and on stage after the show, and he kept speaking up about social causes that were important to him. Blocker never made up with him directly before he died in 1972, but in later interviews, he is said to have talked of Roberts with a kind of tired reverence. Blocker once thought that he could have been correct to desire more, but he failed to be thankful for what he already had. Their friendship is still one of the most interesting behind-the-scenes stories in TV history. Two skilled men who loved their work but couldn't agree on what it meant to be an artist had a fight. Dan Blocker wasn't just angry with Pernell Roberts. He was also disappointed. He was disappointed that someone he looked up to for their brains and talent could also be so cold, critical, and aloof. Blocker left behind a legacy of kindness, generosity, and friendship. Roberts, on the other hand, left behind a history of independence and disobedience. Bonanza was changed forever by both men, but fans still remember Blocker's great heart and honest comments decades later. Blocker once put it simply, "You don't have to like everyone you work with, but you should at least strive to respect them." Pernell never let us have that chance. The world was shocked and heartbroken when famous actor Dan Blocker died suddenly on May 13, 1972. He is best remembered for playing Hoss Cartwright on the long-running Western show Bonanza. Blocker died in Englewood, California, at the age of 43. His death left a huge hole in the entertainment world and in the hearts of millions of fans who loved his warmth, humor, and humanity both on and off the screen. The stated cause of death was a pulmonary embolism, which is a rapid and deadly blockage of an artery in the lungs. This happened after what was supposed to be a routine gallbladder surgery at Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital. At the time, reports said that Blocker had gone to the hospital for a routine medical treatment that neither he nor his doctors thought would be life-threatening. After the surgery, though, things went wrong when a blood clot developed and moved to his lungs, cutting off his oxygen supply and causing his heart to stop. His family confirmed the news, and later news sites covered it in a sad tone. Blocker went to the hospital for gallbladder surgery, got a blood clot in his lung, and died. This little sentence summed up how surprising and quick his death was. It was hard to believe that Blocker, who was known for being a robust, larger-than-life personality with a good-natured disposition that represented the moral core of Bonanza, had died. His death was a terrible loss for his wife, Dolphia Parker Blocker, and their 4 kids, David, Deborah, Dana, and Dirk Blocker. The latter followed in his father's footsteps as an actor, but it was also a time of sadness for his extended Bonanza family. People reported that the cast and crew, which included Lauren Green, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts, were very affected. Green, who played Ben Cartwright, the head of the family, is said to have broken down when he heard the news, calling it the end of an era. Michael Landon, who was very close to Blocker, couldn't be consoled and later rewrote parts of Bonanza to show how much he missed his friend and co-star.